Hello, everybody. It's Stephen and Walter here for another episode of So Chatty, and we're coming to you from the past because we usually record these on a Friday. We're recording this on a Tuesday because if you've listened to my vlog this week or the Idiot Quilter episode this week, you know that we are off to the big city of Toronto for a couple of nights starting this coming Wednesday. So we won't be around to do our usual So Chatty on a Friday. So we just decided to pre-record it a little bit early so you wouldn't miss an episode. But we're really not here. Duh. Anyways, what are we talking about today? What we're going to talk about today is something we talked about one other time, but I had one of our subscribers question me about this. And so I did some more research and looked into it and found out that I was right, she was wrong, nah, 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 nah. And I can't say that often because usually I'm wrong. But I'm not this time. But we'll come to that in a moment. But first, what have I been working on? Well, da-da! The Quilt of Valor top that I designed, my own design, is now complete. Now it's time to get it on Lucy and get it quilted. I am very proud of myself with this. There was a lot of quilt math involved in this, and I'm not good at quilt math at all. So basically, and I explained how I designed this on the Idiot Quilter this past week, so I'm not going to go over it again. But it was a combination of mathematics and using the design wall and physically putting pieces up and seeing how they would all fit together. But I'm really happy with the fact that everything does fit together. So as I said on the Idiot Quilter episode, this may become a pattern. It may or not become available to all of you at some time down the road, because I am thinking right now of giving the pattern to the Quilts of Valor people to see if they want to sell it in their online store to, make money for Quilts of Valor. But I don't know. We'll see. I'm not sure how they go about that because most of their patterns that I have seen seem to be done with Northcott. So, not sure. But anyways, that's down the road in the future, and I will keep you up to date about that. So that's what I've been up to. What have you been up to?
Well, I finished my shirt, but I'm not wearing it right now.
No.
So,
Well, you showed that on Stephen and Walter Live. So if you
yeah.
want to see the shirt Walter's talking about, and you haven't seen Stephen and Walter Live for, that would be January the 19th, I believe. Whatever Monday was this past week. See, everything's because we're in the past right now while you're in the future.
No, that would have been January 18th.
Is that 18th? Okay.
Yeah, yesterday was
Oh, yeah, because today's the
20th.
Okay. Anyways, January the 18th, Stephen and Walter Live. And Walter's wearing his shirt in that one. Okay. You have any projects coming up?
Well, I have another shirt cut out, but I was going to look into doing something different maybe.
Something different. Ooh, stay tuned. It's a mystery. Okay, so announcements. As usual, sewing with me on Wednesdays. Links in the show notes below. I'm still looking for suggestions for speakers for the retreat. I am getting very discouraged. I have sent out probably 10 letters asking to see if I could get anybody. I have not had replies to those letters, like nothing. I mean, I get it that some of these creators that I have sent things to are very busy people. And to be honest, I don't expect them to say that they're going to be available, especially when it's a freebie gig. And some of these people, this is sort of their business. So I get that. But why can't you just send me a quick note saying, thanks very much, but I'm unavailable? That's all I need to know. Like, don't leave me hanging, people. So I sent out another one today. So far I have one speaker confirmed. And I have another one that is sort of a speaker, but it's not an official presentation per se. It's really more of a catch-up kind of thing. And I'm not going to say who it is yet, although you will know as soon as I do say the name who it is. But I want to wait until I've got all my speakers confirmed, so then I can announce who they are for this. And I can also announce the date. That's the other thing that's holding me up. I've got 2 dates in mind, but I want to see if they work into the schedule of the presenters and what we can do about that. And so this is why a reply to me is important. All I need is a yes or a no. If you can't, that's fine. I understand. You don't need to give me a human interest story. And I am going to announce who the people were that I sent letters to and then didn't get replies from if I don't get anything either. Because why not? So anyways, moving on. Pop-up Sew Day. Confirmed date now is January the 31st, Saturday, January the 31st. Next week, in all of my videos, the link for that will be there. And those of you on the mailing list will get yours in your email box this coming Monday, which would be 26th, January 26th, I believe. Yeah, to think about those things. I should have a little calendar up here on the screen so I can see all these dates. Okay, so as I said, Walter and I are off to Toronto for a couple of nights because it's Walter's birthday. It's actually not officially his birthday. It's not till the 27th. Yeah, I always have to think about that. The 27th, but we're going this weekend, and we've decided we would go sort of in the latter part of the week as opposed to doing it all on the weekend because Toronto gets busy on weekends. Toronto's busy all the time. Mind you, listening to the forecast for this week, it's supposed to be the coldest on those days that we're in Toronto of the year for this area that we live in. It figures. It just figures.
I mean, today we could still cancel today, but
I don't want to cancel. Do you want to cancel?
No, not really.
No, we'll bundle up.
Yeah.
Besides, if it gets so cold that if we have any distance to travel, we can get there on the subway, that kind of thing. And half of Toronto is underground anyways.
Yeah.
So down in the downtown core. So it's not, we're Canadians, for God's sakes. Don't pussy out.
Well, it doesn't matter even if we were to wait a few days because and it got warmer, it still wouldn't be really warm.
Well, no. So like, just suck it up, buttercups. Yeah. So anyways, yeah, we have that planned. Someone did put in a comment for my vlog this week asking if I would be doing a video of our trip. I will take some video. Especially because we said that we're probably going to try to go to what's called Little Canada, which is a miniature village of the whole of Canada. And it's supposedly quite large. So I will take some video there with that. And I'll probably take bits and pieces here and there. But when it's this cold out, when we're outside, and holding up your phone and things like that, get a little frosty. But I will try to take as much video as possible if I think about it, and we'll put that together and probably show it maybe on So Chatty or on Stephen and Walter Live or whatever, one of the other videos. Okay, anything you want to add to that? Looking forward to your birthday?
No, I get to go see the doctor that day.
Oh, on the day of your birthday. Oh, well, big deal. She'll just look at you. Oh, which doctor?
What? I only have one.
Our regular doctor?
Yeah, I only have one right now.
Oh. And what's she checking you for?
Just my regular checkup.
Oh. My
blood sugar.
Oh.
And my she's giving me a PSA.
Oh. Well, that reminds me, I've got a thing from her to get my blood done in February. At some point in time, I have to have that done. Yeah, so she can see how much more poison she wants to give me for things. Yeah, she's a real pill popper, her. Okay, so moving on. So the topic this week this came from Joanna Peatfield, and she said, I believe the Underground Railroad was real and quilt blocks were used for directions. I believe you don't think so. I'd love to hear your research. So I had said at one point, I always believed, as everybody has, that the Underground Railroad and quilts were used as a secret code for where to go next. They marked safe houses along the way and things like that. And that has been the general feeling, you ask anybody, for decades or more. So, we've never really questioned it. However, I found something back, half a year ago or so that said, nope, it's a myth. And so I reported that on, I think, on one of our So Chatties or something like that. And Joanna, though, she's questioning it. She thinks it's real. It's a nice story. But guess what? I did more research. Nope. It's a complete myth. And so we're going to look at why it's a complete myth and how it got started in the first place. And then we're going to extend it a little bit further, though, that doesn't mean that quilt blocks, original quilt blocks, like old classic ones, don't have some meaning hidden behind them as well. But as far as the Underground Railway was concerned, quilts were not used to indicate anything. And, well, we'll use some logic on this to think, well, yeah, really, if you think about it, how could that work? But we'll come to that. So I did some research, and with the help of AI bots and things like that. And I'm just going to call up my notes here so we can go through this. Okay, so here we go. The title is "The Use of Quilts to Navigate the Underground Railroad is Considered Historically Unproven and Widely Categorized as a Myth by Reputable Historians and Quilt Scholars. While the quilt code is a popular and compelling cultural story, it lacks documented evidence from the 19th century." So there you go. So there's where it comes into legend, because there's really no documentation. So they go on to talk about this evidence against the quilt code. Lack of primary documentation. There are no mentions of a quilt code in the hundreds of 19th century slave narratives or the thousands of 1930s Federal Writers Project oral histories of formerly enslaved people. So there is nothing. This is a legend. That how it got started, I think they talk about this a little further down. We'll get to that. But there's no primary documentation to prove that this was the case, that they used quilts to direct people along the Underground Railroad. Anachronistic patterns. Several patterns central to the code theory, such as the log cabin and double wedding ring, were not in widespread use or did not even exist until after the Civil War. So those are a couple of the ones that they said had coded messages to them, but they weren't even widely used in quilts. They are classic blocks, but they weren't widely used at the time of the Civil War. They came after. So there's one of the reasons why the Underground Railway and quilts doesn't work. Lack of physical artifacts. No surviving quilts from the antebellum period have been found with proven provenance as secret signaling devices. So there's no physical evidence of this either. And if you think about it, okay, the Underground Railroad was before the time of the Civil War. So we're talking in the height of slavery, the early 1800s up to 1860, when the Civil War started. So for any of those quilts to survive would be miraculous. And who was going to sit around and do a complicated quilt simply to hang it somewhere outside of their house or cabin to indicate where people were to go? I mean, it rains. If it's in the south, there's lots of sunlight. They fade the whole bit. They're in the wind. They rip. They tear. Quilts were something at that point in time that weren't really designer level. They were usually made from scraps of old clothing and to reuse those fabrics. And they were used as utility quilts. So, you're talking your 9 patches here. You're not talking something like a double wedding ring. which is a very complicated
What
quilt
about
to
that
make.
churn dash one? That was
Yeah, the turn dash one. We're going to talk about the meaning of some of these blocks. That's an old block, but I mean, to put this kind of time in it to make these kind of quilts. And what happened if something changed?
yeah.
How many quilts, like signal flags, how many would they have? I mean, if you really think logically about this, you start to see the holes in this whole theory. Practical constraints. Most escapes occurred under the cover of darkness, making it nearly impossible for freedom seekers to see or interpret complex quilt patterns hung on fences or windowsills. Well, yeah, no patio lights on either. So there's a consideration that I don't think most of us have ever really thought about, that they couldn't see them because they weren't traveling by day because they'd be spotted. They hid.
And unlike our cities where there's always light, a little
Yeah.
bit of light, if you're in the countryside at night, there's probably no light at all.
Well, this is pre-electricity
Yeah.
time period for one thing. So, yeah. So, when you start looking at it from these points of view, you can see how much this is more of a legend than anything else. So where did the theory come from then? It says origin of the theory. The theory gained widespread popularity following the 1999 publication of Hidden in Plain View, A Secret Story of Quilts and the Underground Railroad by Jacqueline Tobin Raymond Dubard. 1999. Okay? 150 years after the Civil War. So I do have a picture here of this book. I just have to find it. This book is available on Amazon because that's where I found it. And that won't come up yet. I guess I'm going to have to do this. I don't know why this machine does this all the time to me. I don't. Yeah, because what?
You don't know how to use it.
I do. And I had them already up here. How do you think I was? Oh, but I closed that out, and that was why. Okay, I know why I did wrong. Never mind. So, just talk amongst yourself about the Underground Railroad while I find my stupid pictures that I had here, because I got a lot of pictures today for this. There we go. And then we need this. And I want to there. And there. And let's pop it up here. See, if I had one of those big screens that are curved, that I wouldn't have these problems.
Well, buy one.
My story is that. Okay, so I think I've got it here. There we go. That's what the book looks like. Hidden in Plain View, A Secret Story of Quilts and the Underground Railroad. So now what you're going to say is that somebody, one of them has a PhD, there's a book about it, so it must be right. Okay, well, no, because it's what it was based on. And if we go back here to the notes, it says, first of all, this book, it's single source. The book relies almost entirely on the oral testimony of one woman, not a whole bunch of, stories from previous slaves or their, children, which there wouldn't be many left. It'd be several generations because this book didn't come out till 1999. But it says this one woman, and her name was Ozella McDaniel Williams, a quilt vendor in Charleston, South Carolina. She sells quilts. And this is where the information came from. We're not talking about somebody that lived in the time after the Civil War or anything close to that. This is in modern times. One woman. Okay, bad research. You never publish your research based on a single source of information. You've got to check the background to all of this. And the author's stance is even the authors later clarified that the book was informed conjecture based on one family story rather than a documented historical fact meant to apply to the entire Underground Railroad. So they even admit that their research is flawed. that it was informed conjecture, means that, well, we speculated based on a minimal amount of information here, and it's on one family story. So, it's an old wives' tale handed down, or how families hand down stories from generation to the generation, and they all get a little bit more convoluted as time goes by, or things added to it, or things left out, all of that. So it's funny that with the publishing of this book in not that long ago, 27 years ago, that suddenly this whole business about the Underground Railroad and quilts arose. Wow, that's something. I wonder if it sold them more books with it. So, modern significance. While dismissed as academic history, the quilt code remains culturally significant as a modern folk tradition. Many African American artisans continue to create coded quilts as a way to honor ancestral resilience and express a sense of agency through storytelling. Okay, so what they're saying there is it's fallen into the realms of folklore only because a certain segment of the society have built upon it by creating sort of more stories around something that really is just a story in itself too, if you get the point I'm making. In other words, it's nice to think that this happened, but it's not true. It said, for further exploration of this tradition, the National Museum of African American History and Culture provides an extensive resources on verified Underground Railroad methods. But one of those methods is not quilts. Now, that's not to say, although I didn't find anything that indicated this, that maybe somebody decided to hang a quilt. And word went around, if you see a quilt on a porch or something on a house, that's a safe place to stay. It's a haven. Maybe, but I haven't found any evidence of that, and nobody else seems to have either. So here you go. Some people are trying to keep the legend alive. Well, it's a nice story. It's a nice story. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing to keep this story alive, but to put it down to actual fact, no, not good research. Okay, so that I think pretty much debunks, or I don't know if debunks is the right word for it, that pretty much clarifies that, yep, Underground Railway and quilts, nope, didn't happen that way.
And I mean, there's lots of books over the years that have brought up things, and people actually believe that that it's real. So,
but obviously, this had one source, and it was hearsay. It was from one woman, and what she remembers that her family told her. So, not solid evidence, and there aren't any of these quilts supposedly laying around. I don't think the Smithsonian or whatever, or the big quilt museums have quilts from the Civil War time period. Quilts existed, but whether or not they were used as part of the Underground Railway, well, basically they're saying no, it's fake, not true. But that doesn't mean to say that quilts don't contain a form of coding. Original blocks do tell a story. There is a significance to original blocks. And I thought we would take a look at what some of these are. And I got to put them up. And what they actually mean. Now, there is a book, and I forget the name of the author. I actually have the book somewhere, who has categorized all the quilt blocks that she could find. And many quilt blocks have the same block, different names for it. And she has tried to categorize them and date them and everything, so that if you wanted to, especially for people who like to buy vintage quilts and date them, it's to help you with it. Forget what her name is, but I know some of you out there will know who I mean, because she's quite famous for doing this book. That's the the be-all and the end-all on the history of quilt blocks. But some of them do mean certain things, or have come to mean certain things. So the research I found said that many quilt blocks are associated with hidden meanings, though those range from established folklore and superstitions to hotly debated historical legends. The Underground Railroad Quilt Code, the most famous hidden meaning, involves the Underground Railroad Quilt Code, a legend suggesting that specific patterns were hung on clotheslines to signal directions or safety to freedom seekers. But we've already debunked that theory. So what do some of the more classic blocks mean? And in this, you're going to find they don't really state directions. And if you think about it logically, how would a quilt block, how would that point in the direction to where the next safe place was supposed to be? Because it's not like they had a big meeting and everybody gathered together and they decided on the standards for the code. So, and word of mouth, maybe, but that would take some time. And if you're fleeing from slavery, I don't think you've got a lot of time to be lectured to about what all the quilt patterns mean. So you see, if you start to think about these things logically, you can see how it's probably not true. But what are you looking up?
History.
Oh, that's it. The Encyclopedia of Classical. Was that? Does it tell you?
I was trying to figure out who it was who.
It's. I think it's Barbara somebody. Barbara. Can I see it on my shelf up there? It might be down here over on the other end somewhere. We're just trying to find out who wrote that.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
What's it say at the top of the book? Up here in the fine print. There it is.
Leisure Arts
no, that's
Presents.
not it. No, I don't think that's the book.
No.
Oh, that one only shows 101. Barbara Bateman. Barbara, hang on. Move your knees. I'm going to get the book. Or maybe I'm not going to get the book. Oh, there it is. I see it. Okay, just everybody stare at Walter for a minute. Or stare at everybody. Stare back. Talk amongst yourselves. If I can reach
it. Might not be able to reach it. Do you want me to come?
No, you just stay on the chair.
I'm taller than you are.
God, why couldn't I have been taller?
There you go. That's
all right.
A different book.
Okay, I got the book. I've got the, it's definitely, because this is a weighty little tome right here. Here's the book. This is the book. If you're interested in the history of quilt patterns and everything, the Encyclopedia of Pieced Quilt Patterns, 3rd edition, compiled by Barbara Brackman. It's an expensive book. I think it's about $60 when I bought it. But in it, it shows blocks, variations on blocks, and it talks in here. She has them all cataloged. The woman didn't have a life. She actually did this all by hand, and she now has it in a database format as well, but she has them numbered. And so you've got ones like the Wandering Foot, Pincushion Burr, 8 Hands Around, and she's cataloged them in according to their shape and that, and she has diagrams of how they're made. Now, it does not give you instructions on how to make these blocks, but it gives you the name. And in the back, she has an extensive index that is all by their names and tells you where you're going to find a picture of it. So what this book is really good for is if you were collecting old quilts and you wanted to know more about the blocks or trying to put it into a time period, then if you looked at the quilt, looked at the blocks that are in it, look them up here in the encyclopedia, and you're going to get a date, an approximate date. And she also tries to give you the origin of it, like if it was in the Kansas City, whatever, something paper, because oftentimes periodicals publish patterns for quilt blocks and things like that on a weekly or monthly basis. So everything you ever want to know is in this book. And I bought this book. I also have a CD that goes with this that works in EQ8, because it was basically the EQ8 people, Electric Quilt, who made this available. I mean, they didn't publish it. No, yes, they did. The Electric Quilt Company, Bowling Green, Ohio, electricquilt.com. Yeah, they did. And they made a disc to go with it that works with EQ8. So if you really want to make any of these, you could get not the instructions, but the layout for it in EQ8. I had great aspirations when I first got into quilting to do something like that. Guess what? Never did. Nope, never did. Okay, so why are we talking about that? Because we're going to talk about what some of the classic blocks meant. So, first one. Should have had a contest here. This is known as the monkey wrench block. And now they're putting this down into what it would have meant if it had been used in the Underground Railroad. They said, a signal to gather tools and prepare for the journey. Okay. That would suggest that there's a beginning point to the Underground Railroad. But I would assume there were many beginning points, because the slaves are on the run. They get caught. They're going to be killed. They're going to be whipped. They're going to be put back into chains and back into slavery for this. So they're not going to get a notice of, like, okay, everybody who wants to go on this trip, we're all going to meet over here at this house. And they're going to be waving this block around saying, okay, get ready for the journey. I don't think that would work that way. But that's what they say that's supposed to signify. And I don't know where they're coming up with this, how they know that. Now, Walter, look in the book in the index at the back and look up monkey wrench. And let's see what Barbara Breckman has to say about this. They're in alphabetical order. Monkey wrench. Starts with an M. Ends with a monkey. Do you find it? Monkey wrench. M-O-N.
Mosaic.
Can you see?
They're a monkey wrench. There's several pages of them.
Okay, well, go to the first page of it.
139.
139 for monkey wrench. We shiver in anticipation. 136, 137, 130, 140, 139. I don't see a monkey wrench. Milky Way. We're just looking here, people.
Monkey wrench.
Where's the monkey wrench?
1142A. Okay, that's different.
That's a little different. Well, they can be different. Okay, that one says, here it gives a date for it. The monkey wrench says that it was first created, where is it now? Monkey wrench. Aunt Martha, Mrs. Danner, 1934. They're the people that give them credit for creating this or for making it popular.
It looks different than the one you have. Monkey wrench. Then there's one on 213.
This is the problem, because there can be several different designs that are all called the same thing.
This one.
Yeah.
And it's got many names. It's got names as double wrench, wrench, monkey wrench, square triangles, Maltese cross, bride's knot, T-quartet, T-design, hens and chickens, true lover's knot, the broad axe, honey dish, bear paw design, aeroplane, dragon's head, airplane, churn dash, the crow's nest, French fours, pioneer patch, Alaska homestead, and hole in the barn door.
Okay, and also look at the dates that are beside a lot of these. The oldest one looks like 1896. Well, it was just called the wrench. Well, 1896. That's
By an Ohio farmer, 1896.
yeah. So that 1896. Well, that's
No,
way
there's
after.
an 1884 too called double wrench.
Okay, but either one, that's way after the Civil War,
Yeah.
and that's by then the slaves have been emancipated. 30
And
years before that.
some of
So
them don't have dates, but the other ones, the dates are all in the 1900s.
yeah, so that tells you there. This isn't old enough to have been part of the Underground Railroad if it really was.
Yeah, the monkey wrench was supposedly 1898.
Yeah, and Ohio Farmer, those are publications that they found
Yeah.
them first found them in that kind of thing. So yeah, there you go. So that one couldn't have been used, at least according to what we're looking at, in the Underground Railroad. So next one they talk about is the wagon wheel, and it's probably got multiple
There's still other monkey wrenches here too.
yeah, well, anyways, we're off the monkey wrench. Go
Okay.
to Ohio wheel.
Ohio.
See what you find there for that. Now, they say the Ohio wheel indicated a wagon with hidden compartments was nearby.
Okay. EF. G. O. H. O.
He's looking it up.
B. C. G. Ohio Beauty.
No, Ohio wheel.
Star. Ohio Trail. I don't see an Ohio wheel.
It may have another name.
What's it look like?
It looks like a wheel. Looks like that. Yeah, they don't list it. At least not under that name. So, don't know what to say about that. Okay. The next one, we're not going to look them all up in the book,
No.
but no, don't see anything there that looks anything like this. So that's the other
Try
thing.
149.
Nope. Nothing there.
That's an Ohio Star. So no.
No.
Okay.
But I mean, like what I say, the Ohio wheel, we're not finding it in Breckman's book, but
It doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
It may be called a wheel.
It may be just a wheel or something. But anyways, this thing where it says indicated a wagon with hidden compartments was nearby. Sounds good, doesn't it? I mean, that sounds like, yeah, they smuggled them out on the Underground Railway, so maybe, but no. Now, next one they talk about is the bear paw, and everybody knows the bear paw. And there it is there. Encouraged following animal tracks through mountains to find water. Encourage them. Okay, I'm hanging out a bear paw. You go and find some animal tracks, and maybe those animal tracks will take you through the mountains and you'll find water. That sounds a little bit too legendary. Log cabin. Everybody knows the log cabin. When featuring a red center, it's signaled to safe house. Okay, the one I've got up here doesn't have a red center. But I know that I've heard people say that the center of the log cabin is supposed to be a yellowy color because that represents the heart of the home, the hearth of the home. You know, fire, that kind of stuff, and warm, and safety, and family. It's got a lot of meanings around the log cabin. Flying geese. All right. When featuring a red center, it's signaled, oh no, sorry, pointed the way north, mimicking bird migration. Okay. You'd have to make sure you've hung the quilt the right way.
Actually, I could see that as just being a sign with triangles on it.
Yeah. I don't know. No, I don't think that works. I really don't. Bow tie, that there's going to be a cotillion and everybody's to dress in their best formal outfits is what that means. No. Instructed travelers to change in... Oh, it does. I was making that up. Instructed travelers to change into finer clothes to travel in disguise. Bull roar. I call BS on that. I really do. What one are you looking up at the moment now?
Bow tie.
Yeah, what if we find it in there, what it says? How many escaping slaves are going to have nicer clothes with them? You know, yeah, I'm going to take my Sunday best.
I only saw one that says bows and arrows and bow bells. Bow knot.
Yep, no bow tie.
Oh wait, bow ties.
Bow ties, okay.
Bow ties. There's a bow tie quilt. 145 bow ties.
145. Well, let's see what they say, or what the dates were for it. I suspect that the dates for the bow tie are more into the 20th century as opposed to the 19th century. Test a theory here. Okay. I don't see anything looks like a bow tie. Oh, well.
Bow ties there.
Okay, that's a group of them. And what's the dates?
That's different than
that's different than the one I'm showing. But
it's just Nancy Cabot.
Whoever that is.
Doesn't have a date.
No.
But it looks different than that.
Well, they names get now that looks closer to a bow tie down here. No. Well,
not
maybe
really.
not really. Anyways, I really question that. Instructed travelers should change into finer clothes to travel in disguise. No, I don't know about that. So, what I found here is they presented all these as if the Underground Railway did use quilt codes. But it says there's a historical controversy to this. Many historians view the quilt code as a modern myth or folklore, while popular in 2026 educational curricula, there is no contemporary written evidence from the 1800s confirming these codes were used as a systematic language. And by looking them up in Breckman's book, we can see that the same title of a block can have various variations or look totally different and have the same name. So that would be confusing there as well. In other words, there's no standardized code.
Mm-hmm.
Traditional symbols and folklore outside of the quilt code, many traditional blocks carry widely recognized symbolic meanings or superstitions. So they have like the log cabin we already spoke of. It symbolizes home and security. A red center square represents the hearth, while a yellow center can symbolize a lamp in the window. Okay, so you can see here how, when you're making up myth, how they've made that work with the Underground Railroad. But it doesn't have to. Wandering foot. Once believed... Oh, I've got pictures here. This a second. Now, this one I have never seen before. They call that the wandering foot. Okay, I saw the name wandering foot, and so what was I thinking of? Feet? Or something that looked like a feet or a paw? Well, this looks more like a flower to me. But apparently, and there are variations on this, apparently this is called a wandering foot. It says, once believed to bring wanderlust or restlessness. Superstitious parents avoided using it for children's quilts unless renamed to turkey tracks to break the supposed curse. So, okay, already you can see how mythology is moving into the supernatural, into curses, witchery, stuff like that too. And then, of course, the double wedding ring, which everybody's familiar with. And this is what I said. If they were hanging out a quilt with the double wedding rings on it, someone spent a long time on that, because a double wedding ring is not an easy quilt to make. Ask anybody who's made one. I am not one of those people. Traditionally given as a wedding gift to bring good luck and unity to marriage. Okay, so these are more modern explanations or for what's behind the block. Then, of course, you have your simple 9 patch. Symbolizes community, balance, and tradition. Okay. And something called, I've never heard of this one either, humility block. A deliberate mistake intentionally placed in a quilt based on the belief that only God is perfect. Oh, okay. Sorry. When I went in and did a search for humility block, this is what I found as a picture. What they're talking about is not really a specific block, but they're talking about a block with a mistake. Now, I was told that when I first got into quilting, that the Mennonites or the Amish, when they make a quilt, they always put in one block that has a minor mistake in it. Because, as it said here, only God is perfect. Well, guess what? I did some research on that too some time ago. Completely false. Completely false. Not only that, I asked an Amish person about it too. When we were in one of the stores, when we were in Berlin down there, it was an Amish store, and I said to the lady at the desk, I said, just if maybe you can clarify for this. I have been told that the Amish always put one block in that has a mistake in it in a quilt because only God can be perfect. She looked at me and kind of went, no, we don't do that. That's
I
a
can't see
legend.
why anybody would.
No.
I could see somebody using that as an excuse why there's a mistake in a
Yeah,
quilt.
and I think that's exactly where the whole thing came from. I think somebody sometimes says, "Oh no, I had to have one mistake in the quilt because only God is perfect." And it caught on as an excuse by quilters who realize after they've put a quilt together that they'd made a mistake. It's convenient, you know. That's what I'd like to say. Any mistake you find in my quilt, that's a humility block. I know it's a mistake. I did it on purpose. Yeah, we tend to call that more or less a customization. But yeah. Um, so you can see how you can understand how legends can arise from all of this because people like to assign cute little stories to different things. We do that as a society. We've been making up stories since we could think all the time. So why should quilts be any different from that? But and if you still want to believe that about these things, well, go ahead. If it makes you feel happy about it, then there's no harm in that. Just realize that you know it's not true. It's a myth. They talked about modern meanings too, like more on larger quilts. Like there's prayer quilts. Modern quilters often tie knots in a quilt while saying a prayer for the recipient, with each knot physically representing that intention. Do they? Maybe. Maybe in some cultural subgroups, maybe they do. Really severe. I don't know if that's the right word. Very religious groups, very traditional Christian groups, maybe. I don't know. Memory quilts. These use fabrics from a loved one's clothing, like a uniform or dress, to preserve their presence in personal history. Well, that's true. Memory quilts are a biggie. So, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying prayer quilts don't exist. It seems to me, though, that would be a sect, a religious sect that might do something like that. And then, of course, barn quilts. Large painted quilt patterns on barns often serve as wayfinding markers or symbols of a family's heritage and specific agricultural history. Yeah, maybe. They're popular. Now you can take classes in making your own wooden barn quilt, kind of a thing. People put them in their gardens, stick them on their garage, whatever. They're a conversation piece. They're an artistic display done by people who can't quilt. No, not necessarily.
There, you can do one on your 3D printer.
I already have. I did one of those back some time ago. But anyways, so legends. So I hope that has it may have disappointed some of you that the legend isn't true. Maybe you don't think I'm right about this, and that's perfectly all right. But from the research that I found and what the research was telling me, I'm pretty sure it's just a really nice legend or story to believe in the Underground Railway and these quilts flapping in the wind, showing the slaves the pathway to freedom. It sounds glorious. It sounds romantic. It's a tale. Yeah. So anyways, I hope that answers Joanna's question. I hope I didn't disillusion her now with it. I mean, you go ahead. If it brings you happiness to think about that, that's okay. Because, you know, in the big scheme of things, does it really matter? It's a nice story. So why don't we just accept it for that? It's a nice story. Okay, so thank you for the suggestion. I've had a few more suggestions that'll be coming up in the next few weeks, but I need more. More. I'm really loving this, that you are giving me these ideas, because I'm enjoying doing the research for this and finding out. And these are things that I wouldn't necessarily have come up with on my own. So please keep the suggestions coming for So Chatty, what you want me to research, and I will do that. And none of my research is meant to get us into a big debate. I'm like saying he's wrong, who's right. It's not that at all. We're just exploring the idea to enlighten ourselves a little further about it. I'm not saying that what I have found is necessarily the definitive statement on whatever the idea was. Okay, any parting words, Walter? Man, a few thoughts?
Not really. I mean, I'm sure that like it's one of those fish stories too. Like, I caught this big a fish, and the next guy says, "Well, you caught a fish that's that big," and
yeah, well, that's how stories get started, So, anyways, okay, so that's it for us. When you see this, we will be in Toronto, possibly freezing to death. With it, but anyways, well, there's always places you can go for a beer or 12. I mean, we're walking, so we don't have to worry about transportation
or stumbling.
Yeah, whatever, into a snowbank somewhere with that. And we'll tell you all about it probably next week. And next week's topic, we're going to be looking at, and where did I write it down? Because I have forgotten already what it was. Well, it's a mystery, but I'll let you know sometime down the road, by next week anyways. Okay, have a good week. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.